Hello and welcome at Book Lovers Companion. My name is Edith and right next to me is my lovely co-host, the Chattering Teacup.
Hello.
And here with us, from across the pond, author Glenn Kaplan. Hello Glenn and welcome at Book Lovers Companion.
Oh, thank you. I'm delighted to be here with you.
And so are we. And like we said before we started the recording, there's really a lot to talk about. When we read your book, Angel of Ambition, which came out in 2022, the Teacup and I discovered there are lots of themes and topics we need to talk about. But first of all, Glenn, what can you tell our listeners about this book?
It is it's in the thriller category, but it's not a traditional thriller. It's not. There's no bombs, there's no ticking clock, there's no chase scenes. It is really the story of a woman from a very poor background in the United States who aspires to the highest she can possibly get to. She doesn't really know how to get there, but it's a story of a woman whose ambition is unleashed, and she goes through the world trying to learn, trying to better herself, and she learns from people. She uses people. She learns about how amoral and evil the world can be. Mm-hmm. And even though she may not necessarily want to do evil things, she sees that that's how people operate and how things work. So she has a very interesting experience of clawing her way up through the world. Mm-hmm. So I would love to hear your reactions to it.
You said there is no ticking bomb. I'm not sure about that.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
There is a chase, but a chase of, say, money or prestige.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Influence.
Very much so.
Well, influence, power.
All those things. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And sorry. Yeah. Go on.
No. So what she knows that there is a world of power and influence and money out there. She's not really sure how it works, but she knows that she's going to need people who know more than she does. And so she has to charm them. She has to seduce them. She has to figure out how she can learn what she needs to know to become one of those people up there.
And the notes you sent me where people also question, or you question the fact that how people react to your protagonist, Angela Hansen. You said love-hate relationship. I agree. That's what I felt about her. And like I said to you, Teacup, but in the end, no matter what, I cheer her on. Because you said we do so, or I do so, probably because in the end, she is the underdog.
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Yes. And she is.
Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
No, please. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
You're the first people who've actually said that insight, and I think it's very powerful.
And usually, because nearly everyone is an underdog, wants the underdog to succeed, even if the methods aren't that nice.
Yes. She is the underdog. Even after she succeeds, she still feels like the underdog.
And at the same time, we were discussing it before we came on, actually, when we compare her to her supposed friend, Charlie. Charlie grew up completely different from her. She grew up rich, the rich girl. She didn't do a single day of work in her life. And the way she behaved exactly the same way the people Angela knew from her past. But, and there's this but in our view of Charlie and Angela, is Angela in the end, maybe, despite everything, despite being the underdog and whatnot, a worse character, because she knows exactly how or what impact her actions have on people.
The other people.
Yes, I think that's true. But she, in a way, she has no choice but to use people that way. I mean, she seduced Charlie as a friend.
Yeah.
She tried to become her little sister. She tried to be her friend. It was, for her, it was a job. It was just like her job working for the big global ad agency. And so she had to be a servant. She had to put herself second. She always had to be worried that Charlie was like her bosses. Would they lose interest in me? Would she get fired as a friend? And so she was constantly working. So she harbored the same resentment that people who feel that they're oppressed in their jobs feel. So it was never, it was for her, it was never a friendship. It was always a working relationship where she was the servant who had to please the queen, Charlotte.
Yes, indeed, it is like that. I mean, we also spoke about in which category we would put your book. You said it's a thriller without the bombs and so on, but would we be able to say, or would you agree that we might also call it a morality novel?
Yes, or an amorality novel.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, because I think one of the lessons from Angela is that she keeps thinking that whenever she does something bad, she's going to be caught. She's going to have to pay the price. She's going to get retribution from fate. And it never happens. It never happens. And she gets off scot-free. And in a way, she's like, whoa, I didn't know that was going to happen. Ooh, I thought, something terrible was going to happen to me. She has these occasionally, if you recall, in the middle of the book, when she's got some big plans of some nasty things that she believes she has to do, she suddenly has this panic attack. And she takes herself into the cheap drugstore on the corner, and she sort of pulls herself back together, because all her life she's felt that whenever she's done bad things, that a spirit of darkness is going to come and destroy her, because she knows, but it never happened.
Yeah.
Can we say that the freedom of people like Charlotte is that they believe they won't get caught?
No, you mean Angela?
No, Charlotte, because Charlotte is privileged. Because Angela, as an unprivileged upbringing, she always, as you said, has the fear when she does something wrong that she will get caught. Whereas Charlotte is privileged.
Yes, I think that's a very good insight. Charlotte feels entitled to everything. And she sees no reason why she shouldn't have exactly what she wants, exactly when she wants it, exactly the way she that's, and she doesn't feel any guilt. She doesn't feel any compunction. She doesn't feel like anyone's going to, there's no evil spirit that's going to come and even it out with her. So when she doesn't get what she wants, and I'm working on a sequel, and Charlotte will come back. Charlotte will come back. But that's very different. Angela never loses that fear at the bottom of her heart. And she knows she has a heart. I mean, she says that she thought that she learned from the more sophisticated, privileged people how to be cold of heart, but she actually was born that way. Or that was part of her essence.
Do you think that Charlotte really is cold at heart, or is she simply uncaring? She's simply not giving a thought about anybody. She's just complete self-absorbed. She doesn't give a fig about anybody else. And like you said, she's completely, she's privileged. She's entitled. Is she cold at heart, or is she just
it's also her upbringing?
Well, I think she's a broken person. And I think she's had terrible marriages, all of which were bad choices. And she ends up sort of going around the world with her dad because they're the only two people who can stand each other. And also she wants to stay close to him because she wants his money.
Yes.
More than anything else, she wants his money.
Yes.
And he's not really going to give it to her.
Nope. And he's also quite an interesting character. In a way, he does get Angela because they have something in common, don't they?
Yes. She comes to him and he understands she's starting out with nothing, just the way he did. And she knows what it's like. He says to Charlotte, Charlotte, you've been spoiled. I've spoiled you. Your mother and I spoiled you. This is what we did. But Angela knows what it's like to be at the bottom. Angela knows what it's like to have doors slammed in your face time and time again. Angela knows what it's like to have to work very hard. Angela knows what it's like to struggle,
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of their completely different upbringing between Cliff and Charlotte, they gave her everything, their daughter, and that's why I think they don't seem to understand each other.
Yes, I think that's true. And there's a dark secret in Cliff's past, and we really don't know what the truth is behind this ugly secret. And we're not sure if what Charlotte has been led to believe, the deep, dark secret, we don't know whether that's true or not. And we're not really sure whether Cliff, through his wealth and power and cunning, has been able to mask and cover up this ugly truth. We just don't know. We just don't know what really happened.
Yeah. And may I ask, Glenn, Angela is your second female protagonist, and you've used another female protagonist in the book Poison Pill. And as far as I've gathered, they're similar and yet different from each other. What is it about female protagonists that makes them so interesting for you?
Okay, first of all, I think women are much more interesting than men to begin with. Men are generally, men are more interested in what like the scoreboard. What's the score? Who's winning the game? Women are much more interested in the texture and the richness and the subtlety of life and the way people are. And they're much more interested in the things I think that make for better stories, at least for me. The difference between Angela and this character in Poison Pill, Emma Conway, Angela is admittedly not very likable. I think she's compelling, but she's not a very likable person. You wouldn't want her as a friend. No. Whereas Emma Conway, well, you couldn't trust her, but Emma Conway, you'd love to have her as a friend. I think she's a very solid person. She has values, but part of that is the fact that she grew up not crazy privileged, but she grew up with all these strengths that were handed to her by life. And as a result, she's more generous and open and promoting of good values in the way she runs her own life. And as I said in that piece that I sent you, there's a whole branch of literature of women who are bad girls, who are not likable but are very compelling. I mean, I think it starts with the character Becky Sharp in Vanity Fair. Early Victorian literature. She is a social climber. She is amoral. But one of the points that Thackeray makes about Becky in Vanity Fair, which is similar to Angela, is if Becky Sharp had £5,000 a year income, would she have been a better person? And she probably would have been. And, the difference between Emma Conway from Poison Pill and Angela Hansen in Angel of Ambition is that Emma Conway had the £5,000 and was herself a better person. But, like Scarlett O'Hara, Mildred Pierce, there are lots of these bad girls who I think are very interesting. Probably the one that carried it to the greatest, craziest thing is Amy Dunn in Gone Girl. Angela Hansen is nothing like Amy Dunn. I mean, she's not she's not a psychopath. She's not crazy that way. But I think women who own their own anger, who own their own ambition, who do things that generally men would not be criticized generally for displaying the kind of ruthless ambition. But when women in real life do it, and women characters in fiction, people go, "Oh, she's not likable. She's not likable." But wait a minute, these are basic human drives, and why shouldn't a woman be able to pursue her goals, to own her own anger, to own her own ambition, to own her own, and to go through the world and go for it? Why not?
I think we talked about it before. I think there are more expectations towards women than towards men. Then because women have to, more or less in general, have to behave in a certain way. They should be caring, and if they're not caring, they're bad. And if they should be successful, but if they show the traits to be really successful, they're also bad. So there's no way to win other than tell me what to do, I'm going to do it. So, I mean, that's no solution.
Absolutely. And if you look at, I don't want to name names here, but if you think about very successful women in the real world, many of them are tarred with this, you're not likable, or you're a bitch, or whatever. And they're too successful, and they in a man's world, and they are condemned for it. Whereas men who do that, they go, he was ambitious. He tried hard. He had to be ruthless. He did what he had to do. Women don't get the benefit of that break. They really don't.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, isn't that what has Jack for himself going? He's a man. He's ambitious. And he gets a pat on the back. Well done. Great. And if Angela does the same, full woman.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Now, he taught her, another, oh my God, I've got a thunderstorm here. But in one of the scenes, she says to him that she had just gone to see My Fair Lady, which was based on Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. And it was the whole idea of, could we take a flower girl from Covent Garden and turn her into a lady? And this is what Jack did for her. But then she actually, like a really good student, uses the techniques she learned from her teacher on the teacher and outsmarts him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in between, we have the so-called workers, I'd say, symbolized by Stuart. When you introduce him, it connects because the way he feels, he's just a wheel in this whole machine. It feels real. And the fear he has of losing his job. He's very good at his job, but he hasn't reached a certain age, and he can sell a lot of things, but not himself. And I think that's true for men and women, a lot of them. Just in the middle.
Well, I think I've written a lot about life in the world of big business, and there are good parts to it and there are bad parts to it. Now, in Poison Pill, there's a lot of darkness and evil, but the good guys win. In Angel of Ambition, it isn't a noir book, but it's a little dark. And the lens through which we're looking at the business world is more about the dark fears. And in the media business, particularly, I mean, the portrait of Stuart comes from many people that I knew and worked with. And those fears, because, for instance, Stuart is actually very old because he's in his 50s. When in the world of advertising and marketing, when people reach 40, they're too old. They're too old. So his fear is a genuine thing, and the character of Stuart was actually based on someone that I knew and worked with, who actually did die of a heart attack when he knew that he was on the list to be fired. So there's all of these. The media businesses are, well, all of business has a cruel side to it, because the businesses themselves don't care about people, and the people have to carve a way for themselves in it. But when a business has no use for you as an individual employee, you're done. unless you know.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did with Angel of Ambition is to focus on the fears and the dark side of that. I mean, there are also people have a lot of fun in business. They have little communities and all that. But at the end of the day, and many people come to love their companies. But here's the thing: the company doesn't have to love them back ever.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and so
you make them think the company loves you back. That's what Angela also says. We make them believe we love them back. We make them believe we are their family.
Oh yes,
and yet we're not.
They expect it of their employees, but they're not giving anything back.
No, absolutely no. And the title that she has, Chief Culture Officer, is kind of a newish title, but I will say that her corporate role and the dishonesty of that corporate role is based on things that I've observed in real life. You know, I mean, in fact, I had a particular experience, not individually, personally, but up close and personal with a chief culture officer at a big company. And she was magnificent at playing that role. But underneath it all, it was exactly what Angela said. You know, we just delude these people, and then when we don't need them, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's just that's just the way the world is.
Yeah.
It's also that somewhere you say that Jack is the best at lying. It's all about lies.
Yes,
it rings quite true sometimes.
Well, yes. I mean, that's what, for instance, in politics, in marketing, in politics, regardless of what country it's in, there's no limit to what lies can do for you. Now, in the world of marketing, at least in most countries, there are laws and stuff, and so what you learn to do is basically the lawyers and the regulators will say, well, you can mislead up to this point, but you have to stop here. You know, you can't say that this soft drink cures cancer because that's not true. But you can try and convince people that if they drink this soft drink, they will be handsome. They will be sexy. They will be beautiful. They will be on vacation, you know, in Bora Bora. Well, it's just water and sugar and carbon dioxide. It's not going to make you more handsome, but that kind of innocent. It's not innocent, but it's a lie. It's a lie that people love. And, you know, in a way, when you think, lightning, when you think about the way politicians lie without anything to hold them back, it makes the world of business look very tame.
Yeah, true. And what would you say? What are the most important character traits for someone in the corporate world to make it there, to climb the ladder?
Well, it depends. It depends upon the person. It depends upon where you go and how you manage your career. My very first book was a long time ago, but it was a nonfiction book, and I went around the United States and I interviewed over 300 people who were in top positions, and it was basically, how did you get to the top? And they all told their stories, and I put it into different chapters about different career paths. It depends upon the individual. There are people who make it to the top who basically are very moral and very positive people who try and work hard with teams. And there are other people who are very sneaky and very dishonest. And it's a mixture. I mean, you can't, there's no one thing. There are good people, there are bad people, there are people in the middle, there are people who are good who've done some bad things, there are bad people who've done some good things. The world we live in is you know, it's all shades of gray.
Yeah. And would you also agree that nowadays, even more so than, let's say, back then, and I don't know, I have no experience in the corporate world, but fake it till you make it. I mean, is it the I don't know, dogma? Come to think of people like Elizabeth Holmes, for example, and her Theranos company.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's one thing to follow this dogma when you work in, let's say, IT, when you're a startup in IT. But this woman was promising better healthcare And yet,
You-
yes, and people fell for her promises, and
Yes.
they believed everything she said without any proof at all.
At all. Well, you know, it's interesting. One of the Silicon Valley journalists who I think does a phenomenal job is, do you know Kara Swisher? Oh, okay. You should check her out. She's a very smart journalist. She has some podcasts and whatnot, and she's been a fixture in Silicon Valley. And she was one of the people who said, you know, well, we need more women CEOs, more women founders. But the minute she saw Elizabeth Holmes, she was like, no, not you. You're not one of them. And it was interesting because the game that she played in Fake It Till You Make It was there were no doctors or scientists on her board. Only people who just fell for her looks, her salesmanship, her persuasion. You know, they didn't know any better. And they were all, I mean, from George Shultz, the former Secretary of State, to Bill Clinton, all these people who she seduced, basically. And they were happy to go along with it. But there was a reason that she had no scientists in her company, she had scientists in the company, and there were any number of the scientists who were saying, "Wait a minute, this is wrong. This is wrong." You know, but now she's in prison now, and her partner is in prison. So I mean, sometimes, you know, people do pay the price.
Yeah. Thank goodness for that in this case, I'd say.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, people were hurt and would be hurt.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, there was a sentence in the book I really liked. They dressed to express their fierce individuality by conforming rigidly to one of the fashion templates current on the creative side of media world. So, is there any real individuality anymore, or is it dead?
I don't. Well, I think we all need to feel a sense of belonging. It depends upon which community we want to feel. It's like different cultures. So, for instance, if I were to come to Austria and had no idea about the cultural ways, I could make all sorts of mistakes just in dealing with people, and I would have no idea. And what I would want to do is, if I'm going to go live in Austria, I would want to learn how do people behave, how do people interact, how do people dress, you know, what's considered normal, what's considered abnormal. And I would want to find a tribe to belong to. And people do that. Now, in the media world, I think a lot of the people who are attracted to it and who do well in it, it's an area where narcissism reigns, where people are very much infatuated, and a lot of other areas, this is not the case. Like, for instance, people who become doctors and nurses and who are very focused on helping other people. They're not that focused on their own image, on, you know, looking at myself and admiring, you know, like Narcissus. People in the media business often are like that. And so they look, one of my theories of life is that in everything you need to know about human interaction, you learn in the high school cafeteria, you know. And so you want to be with,
maybe in the United States. It's a bit different here in Austria.
But school is correct.
School is school. Okay, yeah, but
yeah. I mean, but there are the kids who are very cool. There are the kids who are not cool.
True.
And so people like to the narrator voice of Angel of Ambition is a bit cynical, and the sentence that you picked up on there is sort of the slightly cynical attitude of the narrator, but I think that's true. And if you were to take like the group of different people who were dressed in a particular way and had tattoos a certain way, they would say, well, I'm being an individual, but I want to be just like these other individuals over here. And but I think that's a normal human behavior. You know, we pick where we want to belong, and then we adopt the ways of dressing, the ways of talking, you know, the ways of behaving that fit into the ways of a particular tribe.
Mm.
So is it kind of a safety net? Because I want to be an individual and I want to be different than you. But if you don't like it, I have my group.
Absolutely. I agree. Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
And I want to be an individual who belongs in that group.
Where we all are individuals.
Yes.
Yes.
We are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Just looking the same, but we're all individuals. And since we're talking about this whole point of view, have you played with the idea of using a first person narration in this book or not at all?
Well, there's sort of a first. Well, it's funny. My very first novel, which was a first novel and not that good, but it was published, and I remember my first meeting with an editor, and she said, "Oh, you wrote this in the first person." She said, "That's the most difficult way to write a novel." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah, much easier to do it in the third person."
Oh.
But the audiobook won a very nice award, the Silver Ben Franklin for the independent publishers. And in terms of points of view, when I spoke to Blackstone, who produced the audiobook, I said, we need a male and a female narrator because there are four point of view characters, two men, two women, and if a woman is reading a man's point of view, it's not going to work. It could be embarrassing, kind of icky, and vice versa. But the same token, like for instance, there is a long scene with Jack and Stuart where it's written in Jack's point of view, but Angela has all the best lines, which means so what I did for them, since audio books are like podcasts, they're radio. It's really radio, an old-fashioned radio.
Yeah.
So I took the manuscript and without changing any words, I formatted it like a radio script, so that the actors and the producer and the director could read it and be guided the way you would through, like, a podcast or a radio script. And they did a great job. They really did. So I said, when you're reading a narration part, Jane walked to the corner, but then when Jane speaks, then you speak in Jane's character voice, and then you go back to the narrator voice.
Since you spoke about this intricacies of media life and how media works, I mean, I'm not sure if you heard about this case in the United Kingdom about this morning show presenter. No, Philip Schofield. He was fired, I think, or he quit or quit. I'm not sure about that, but there's a huge scandal now by ITV, this one of the huge media companies in the United Kingdom. And the thing was that he had an affair with a younger male, they called him runner. And the question... Some years ago. But the question also is, I mean, he was dependent. He was quite young when they knew each other. So the question also remains, did they have a sort of, relationship when he was underage? So and how, and also the question how he behaved when he was the host of the show towards his guests and also other people who worked there. It's a huge question mark these days. There was also in Parliament, I think, there was a hearing regarding this company ITV in the Houses of Parliament, and how they coped, how ITV, for example, coped with him as a character, and how they more or less covered these things, these rumors,
Yeah. Well, there's been the Me Too reckoning and all that. And there are any number of executives who were booted in the United States out of media companies for just that. I mean, not just like abuse, but relationships and all that. And there's been several just in the last couple of months. And I think what it says is the workplace is a natural environment for people to have romantic, physical relationships, just because they're together all the time. They see each other in an exciting, suspenseful, they're performing. It's a very natural thing, and we now have lots of rules and whatnot. I mean, in the past, before there were a lot of these reckonings, people got ahead by having sex with other people, in the workplace. It's just, the world we live in now is very different. But the frequency with which these things, what used to happen, say 20, 30, 50 years ago, is nobody ever heard about this stuff.
Yeah.
It was all kept quiet.
Yeah.
And now it's a big scandal, but the behaviors are the same.
I want to think that maybe 20, 30 or more years ago, people had more life or free time out of their jobs. So it was probably easier to meet other people. Whereas nowadays, I think people spend more time in their jobs, and that's where people meet.
Absolutely. That's yes. I think that's a very key insight. And so it's, how could they not end up, with people who are attracted to each other or want to use each other? And the Angela character is in the midst of all that. I mean, when she gets her first, she's had all sorts of terrible jobs. She's worked as a maid. She's worked as a manicurist. She cleaned the toilets at a fancy hair salon. She gets a job probably as a secretary in this ad agency. And so she's looking around and she says, well, I want to be one of those people in the big corner offices. How do I get there? And so she sees the boss of her area, who is a handsome, narcissistic, very successul advertising guy. Like if did the show Mad Men make it into Europe?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jack is like a Don Draper, and the Don Draper kind of characters. The reason that character keeps appearing is there are all sorts of Don Drapers in the advertising business. I mean, that's just who gets ahead, and you need to be handsome and all that sort of thing. So she convinces him to be her mentor, and then she basically says, well, is he telling me everything that he knows? And because he's open to flirting. I mean, it's not a one-way street. It's two people have to cooperate. Because he's open to flirting. I mean, for instance, a scene that I cut, but that I think will go into the sequel, is she has this insight. She overhears the conversation. Jack is evaluating some advertising copy from the people who work for him. And his job in that role is to be an editor. He has to be cruel. He has to be demanding. And he looks at the copy and he says, that's as boring as married sex, which you could get in trouble for in the United States if you were to say that in the office. But, that's the way people talk. And so Angela here, she goes, ooh, maybe there's an opportunity there. And so she flirts with him. And she flirts him, and the two of them decide to have an affair. But then she makes a terrible mistake. She really does fall in love with him, and she finds herself, he's going to leave his wife for me. He makes all these promises to me. She spends time imagining the life that she's going to have with him, how he's going to take care of her. And so it becomes this huge, and then he just drops her. And of course, like all these, and I have noticed in any number of novels recently written by women in their 20s and their 30s, and I've just bumped into this just recently, a lot of them have affairs with older married men. And of course, they don't last, and they're hurt. But I think for if young women novelists are making this a thing, I think it has to be a thing. But anyway, Angela is brutally hurt by being dumped, and it helps her harden herself. And so she says, okay, well, this man really misled me. I shouldn't have fallen for him. I shouldn't have let my emotions run away with me. I'm going to harden myself. I'm going to lock away my emotions. I'm going to work and use the lessons that I learned from him to move myself ahead in the corporate world and get as far as I can. And then what she does is, as she becomes more powerful, as she gets better jobs and gets more and more power, she sees more of the world, and particularly when she moves to London, and she sees there's this other world of people who are much more successful than the people who work in corporations. These people live off the interest of their fortunes. And she says, oh, well, there's an even higher place I can get to.
Yeah.
And that's when she has the luck to meet Charlotte at she meets her at one of these fancy London clubs where she gets invited. And again, that was a scene that I cut.
Yeah.
But because Angela's always looking for the next level, she realizes that this Charlotte person, Angela, who's a keen observer of human beings, sees Charlotte's needs and weaknesses. Charlotte, of course, doesn't see her own needs and weaknesses because she has very little self-awareness. And so she thinks to herself, I can be like a loyal kid sister to Charlotte. And I can flatter Charlotte. But in the meantime, Charlotte will teach her the ways of the rich. And so it's a mutual, they both use each other. They both get something out of this relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And sorry, Tika, but I'm just wondering about Jack and what is even worse for him. Because when he gets his other job for Charlotte, he gets a little bit, more than a little bit, a taste of his own medicine.
Yes.
And he realizes now he's the, let's say it, we are Europeans, we can say it, he is the whore. For his employer.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if that is even worse for him than having lost his job the way he has at the company. For a man like him. For a man like him.
Yes. It's a terrible humiliation. Now, he still enjoys sex. So I mean here's this woman who's thrown herself at him, but he realizes that he's the employee. He's the servant, and he has to minister to his female master. And I kind of like the irony of that in this day and age, and also because in the United States at least there are rules and regulations around companies, but when you go into a wealthy private family that is in fact a business, there are no rules. So, as he's being sexually molested by his employer, by his boss, Charlotte the heiress, he realizes he can't go to the human resources department and file a complaint.
True.
He has no recourse. He can leave the super yacht and go home on a cheap flight if he wants to. But if he wants to hold on to the job, he has to do her bidding. And unlike at the agency where there were rules and there were lawyers and everything, where he was held accountable for something he may or may not have done, here he's at her mercy. He's absolutely at her mercy. So I mean, I deliberately set up a parallel between inside a company and then when you're inside the world of a wealthy family where the rules are made only by the members of the family and the other things don't apply.
Can the ambition of Angela ever be fulfilled? Because her ambition seems somehow like an addiction. Because she has reached her first goals, then she, okay, there are other people, richer people. So is there any end to it inside? Or?
Well, I think that is a question that I'm grappling with in the next Angela book. And I think it will be very interesting because, and she tells Jack at a certain point when they're on the yacht that all she really wanted was a feeling of safety and a feeling of security. And so when she finally has enough, she's going to undergo a change. And I think, and one of the characters actually who I'm envisioning is going to help her is this Susanna Stratzman, who was born into wealth and aristocracy. And she's the one who, remember, sends her the text when Angela at the very end is accepted into the prestigious committee for the benefit. And she said, "You were born to be one of us."
But Susanna is also quite different from Charlie. She knows.
Oh, yes.
She knows. I mean, for her, I got the idea, the impression that for her, the expression "with great wealth comes great responsibility" is not just a slogan. I think she takes it serious.
Yes, she does. She takes it very seriously, and she sees in Angela something about her, like her ancestors, who started poor and became rich and then were transformed.
Yeah, makes for an interesting character.
In Angel of Ambition, Angela is not sure how far she has to go to feel like she has enough. And part of her journey is that she's learning. And if you think about it, if you were to walk into a store with all sorts of beautiful things, and how much can you take? How much do you want? I didn't know I wanted that thing over there. Oh, I want that. Oh, and there's some, oh, I didn't know I want that. But once you've sort of seen everything that there is to buy or to grab or to want, you kind of go, oh, well, then what do I really,
I mean, I suppose that Angela is not really a narcissist.
No, she's not.
She's not. She has a few traits, but that doesn't make her one. Yeah. Like you said, she's a keen observer and she has learned a lot in her jobs for the rich and the affluent.
Yeah.
And she uses it at her disposal, but at her heart of hearts, she's still the little girl from the poor background.
Who feels insecure.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yep.
And
That's
she has
true.
to lose this insecurity to feel safe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But part of it, what she needs to do is she needs to feel financially secure.
Yeah.
And then this goes back to what Thackeray said about Becky Sharp in Vanity Fair. If she had £5,000 a year, she could probably be a good woman.
Yeah, but she will also defend what she has.
Oh yes, yeah.
I suppose
she's a study in ambition. That's why she's the angel of ambition. And I think what's interesting about this day and age is through the internet and social media, there's almost no limit to what people are striving for or thinking about. I mean, I think it's fascinating and a little bit sick that we have, because of what's put in front of us, this fascination with billionaires. I mean, what does it matter, Bernard Arnault or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos? I mean, it's like their lives don't relate to the lives of regular human. But we feel like we know them and we watch them, and there's this fascination with it. And so I think the subject of ambition and yearning for more and more and more and more and more is something that is a part that's foisted upon us in a way that hasn't been in eras past.
But isn't it
because everything's available?
But isn't that also part of the advertising world? Because advertising wants you to buy things you don't need, and if you step back and say, I've had enough. I'm completely satisfied with what I have. It would somehow bring the economy to a stutter.
Yes.
And so you have to go on and go on more.
Absolutely. No. Advertising is the engine of desire. And it makes you want things that you didn't know you wanted, that you probably don't need, almost certainly don't need. And what branding does is, like we said about soft drinks, it's water, sugar, syrup, and carbon dioxide. And people feel that it makes them, it fulfills their dreams, it makes them more good looking, it's part of their aspiration. It's just water and sugar and carbon dioxide. But it's our consumer society. I mean, and Jack is a master of how to take really nothing and make it into something. I mean, one of the scenes that a number of the men who've read the book and enjoyed it said when Jack makes the presentation to Cliff the billionaire about a very cynical presentation about philanthropy, the men readers, the women readers didn't even seem to notice that scene, but the men readers said that is not only funny, but it's true. That it's really about how sad the thing is and how much ego boost the philanthropist will get by giving by giving money to it.
Yeah, it's all about ego, isn't it? I mean, that's what I liked about Cliff when they were at this dinner.
Yes.
And he said, it's BS, it's bullshit. Come on, if they really would care, they would just give the money for the research and be done with it,
Absolutely.
not just get their own ego stroked.
Yes. And so, for instance, if you really wanted to cure the disease, rather than have this ridiculous party that costs tons of money for all these people to come and display their vanity and their narcissism, if everybody just quietly wrote a check and nobody got any credit for it, and it just went to the scientists to help cure the disease, but that's not how it works.
Yeah, it's marketing.
Yes.
Do we have to sell them good courses like that? Do we really have to sell good courses like that?
I think if you want other people to
Spend
donate money,
okay.
yes. Otherwise, probably not.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah.
And every good cause does it. And the same people who sell you your car or your soft drink are selling you really good causes.
Yeah, true.
But everything has to compete for attention.
Yeah.
And so the skills and the tools that you must use in the world we live in to compete for attention, that's just the way it is. I mean, if you have whatever, say you have whatever a cause is, and it's the most noble, selfless, important thing, if it just sits there by itself and doesn't go out into the world and use the tools of persuasion and marketing, no one's going to know about it. No one's going to contribute to it. It's just the way the world is.
Just wonder, is there a danger because of this immense number of advertising and information we get all the time, that people say, okay, I'm not listening anymore, I've had enough, I'm just closing myself off? I mean, there are a few people, but is there a danger that these people becoming more?
Well, no, I think it's something, I feel that way fairly often. Certainly since social media it's become such a part. There's too much. It's too much. It's too much. It's constant. It's everywhere you go. Advertising used to be like 20 years ago, and before that, it was a kind of benign environmental pollution, and you could ignore it. Like a billboard by the highway or whatnot, or a magazine ad. But now it's so integrated into everything that we do, especially here, that it's and furthermore, the part that I think is an evil that we haven't reckoned with yet is advertising used to be kind of desperate. It's like, oh, please pay attention to my billboard. Please watch my commercial. Maybe you do it, maybe you don't. But now, with the tracking technology and everything, since the advertisers and the people who own the platforms are monitoring everything you look at, not just what you look at, how long you look at it, how you interact with it, and then feeding you more of the same thing. I mean, you can play a game with any of these social media things where if you decide, like, I want to look at orangutans. And all you do is you look at something about orangutans, and suddenly you're going to get orangutan, primates, and it's like, I didn't ask for those things. All I did was look at an orangutan. And well, in the United States, with the polarized political thing, it's just, and the Wall Street Journal, I think it was last week or the week before, they showed how on Instagram, the article, it was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, but interestingly, hardly anybody else picked it up. But they showed that the algorithms on Instagram were promoting child pornography. And so what they did, what the reporter did at the Wall Street Journal was just, go on Instagram, and suddenly his Instagram feed was flooded with, which is patent. It's illegal to do that. But because of the way the computer systems have been unleashed, without without governing rules, that's what it does. Now, what I imagine is the people at Meta, they made sure that the technology that would flood you with child pornography, they made sure that technology works. But what about the technology to prevent the child? There's probably I imagine there's one guy in a cubicle somewhere with a 10-year-old PC. And okay, you try and stop this. But in the meantime, that we got it right, the technology that will feed you that, or whether it's hate speech or anything like that. Yeah. So and that's something that's a marked change. The world we lived in 20 years ago was not that way.
Yeah.
This is a totally different thing, and we haven't come to grips with it.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's an incredible challenge for all of us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Glenn, you have touched a little bit upon your plans because you said you are working on a sequel.
Yes.
Of Angel of Ambition. So, what can we expect next from you?
Okay, I think you will find Angela has made it to the top, and the experience of that is going to transform her. She's going to, if you recall the prologue of Angel of Ambition, she writes a letter to the daughter she might have someday. Well, she's going to have that daughter, and the experience of becoming a mother is going to be transformational in many ways, and others not. And she's going to have Charlotte come back very much as a worthy rival, an antagonist. And there will be, I think, some excitement and suspense around Angela and Charlotte.
Ooh, yeah. a bit of bitch slapping.
Fight. Yeah. And Angela is going to be very much threatened. She's going to have to be more resourceful than she's ever been. And I'm hoping it will be an entertaining, fun, thrill ride of an exciting story.
I have no doubt, because Angel of Ambition was a fantastic read.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so pleased.
And like I said, I mean, your protagonist, Angela, you absolutely behind her, even though it's a hate-love relationship at times.
Yes,
but you still cheer her on.
But as you said, I mean, like her, but not want to be her friend.
No, absolutely not. No, I'd be very afraid.
I agree.
Like to read about her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
From a distance.
Yeah.
Read about her from a distance. Glenn, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know?
No, I hope you can pick up Angel of Ambition and give it a try and see if it's your kind of suspenseful, interesting story that takes you to places with people you normally wouldn't hang around with.
True.
I think it has glamour, it has suspense, it has some escapism, and at the end of the day, it's meant to be a fun ride.
Yep, it is. It absolutely is. We agree. Teacup. Absolutely. Give it a try. You will not regret it. Absolute fantastic read.
Yeah. Great.
Get yourself into the corporate world. So, Glenn, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you. It was just a lot of fun. Enjoyed it very much. Yep. Thank you.
You did enjoy this episode as much as we did? Then hit subscribe and don't miss the next episode. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you like to support us and buy us a coffee, you can do so via Buy Me a Coffee and other platforms. You can find all the necessary links in the description. Until next time.